Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I am excited that you are joining me. The next hour, I'm going to drop a lot of real talk and knowledge on email marketing, social media. We're also going to talk about AI. But before I get started, I want to take this moment to introduce myself. So I'm Carlos Gil. I am your brand evangelist for GetResponse. I joined the GetResponse team earlier this year to do just this, provide thought leadership, connect with our community, and represent GetResponse, not just online, but in person in the communities as well. As you can see on the slide in front of you, I bring over 15 years of digital marketing expertise to GetResponse. I've had the opportunity and just honor of working for large brands throughout my career, including LinkedIn, BMC Software, Winn-Dixie, and Save a Lot, just to name a few. Now, before I get started with today's presentation, I want to go ahead and invite you to connect with me on social media. So you can follow me at Carlos Gil 83 on X, as well as at Carlos Gil 83 on Instagram. I am accessible. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions about this content, if you want to learn more about GetResponse, feel free to just connect with me and holler at me. Also, if there is any questions that you have about social media marketing or email marketing or AI or anything I covered today that you want to know more about, make sure that you drop those questions in the chat. If you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, make sure that you drop those questions on the comments as well. And I will personally get to as many as I possibly can within the time that we're together here. Or if you're watching this on the replay, I'll make sure that I get back to you on the comments section. So let's go ahead and get into it. I first want to know from you, where are you watching from and what are some of the different challenges that you're facing right now in your digital marketing? And I want to use this to set the stage because throughout today's presentation, I'm going to talk to you about the realities of the state of digital marketing today. Digital marketing has become increasingly noisy and cluttered. And what I want to do is really help provide you with actionable strategies to help you move through that noise. And more importantly, help you scale and grow your business. Now, in terms of a couple of housekeeping notes here, I already mentioned questions. Make sure you get your questions. Make sure we connect on social media. Make sure that you're following at GetResponse if you aren't already. Throughout this presentation, you're going to see on several of these slides a QR code. That QR code will take you directly to getresponse.com where you can sign for a free trial. If you are not using GetResponse right now, I guarantee you, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. If you are using another email service provider, I guarantee you, you're more than likely overpaying and not getting the value that you can get with GetResponse. So when you see that QR code, make sure you scan it, sign up today for a free trial of GetResponse. You can use GetResponse for 30 days, no credit card, no commitment. You can get started, use all of our tools and features within the free trial period. And then if you like it, you can go ahead and subscribe and convert at that point to a paid plan. You're also going to see here on the screen in front of you a link to my all new course, which is called No BS Marketing Strategies. And today I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of that course. But you can sign up for my course. It's completely free. I poured in 15 years of my experience working in brand marketing at a corporate enterprise level, combined with working as an entrepreneur, starting my own businesses. The course itself is just like a multiple hour, 40 plus lesson brain dump, if you will, of everything that I possibly can teach you about humanizing your brand, future proofing your brand, and growing your brand in today's noisy digital economy. Which brings me to this first slide right here. So a few years ago, I wrote my book, The End of Marketing. The book very quickly became a best-selling book. And thankfully, due to COVID and a lot of folks sitting at home reading, the book became one of the top marketing books of all time. And the reason for that is because The End of Marketing is actually an anti-marketing book. It's a book that teaches real and relatable strategies, whether you're a small business owner or an enterprise marketer, on how you can future-proof your brand and stay relevant in this time of AI and beyond. And AI is something that I'm going to touch on throughout this presentation. Look, you can't run away from it. As technology continues to advance, we're going to see more advanced versions of ChatGPT and many of the AI tools that we're already seeing in the market. But what I want to share with you very quickly before I move forward is the reason why I wrote this book, The End of Marketing, is because there's so many folks that are going to miss on this opportunity to capitalize on using AI and they're going to find themselves out of business or out of a job. And I don't want that to happen to you if you're watching this and you're on the fence about AI. With that being said, I want you to mentally hit the reset button on everything that you've ever been told about social media marketing and selling online. And this goes for email marketing as well. And I say this because after working in this industry of digital marketing since 2008, meaning 16 years, almost going on 17 years now, the way digital marketing has evolved is you've got more inventory, you've got more noise, you've got more people using these mediums. And it's highly important and critical that you are focusing on building relationships at scale. Building relationships is something that you can't necessarily automate. It takes time. It takes time to produce content. It takes time to build community. And there's so many gurus and thought leaders today that are just misinforming marketers and business owners and letting them know, hey, if you jump on Instagram, you're going to get all this reach. If you use ChatGPT, you're going to be able to game the algorithm. And it doesn't work like that. What you're going to hear me say multiple times throughout the next hour is that today's consumer doesn't want to be sold to. They want to be engaged. So if you're using systems and tools like ChatGPT to create content in mass, well, I hate to break this to you, but the world doesn't need more content. The world needs more valuable connections. And content is essentially the gateway for those connections. But just producing content for the sake of creating content is a complete waste of time. And again, this presentation, my course is all about real talk. I use no BS a lot because I'm going to shoot it straight with you. Whether you're a small business owner and you're trying to figure out how to use social or how to use email, or you're an enterprise marketer and you've got limited resources and a small team. And, I'll give you an example. I was at a conference last week. I met someone that runs email marketing for a brand, and they are responsible for running 25 different brands' email campaigns. Well, guess what? It's really challenging in this market to be a team of one and have such responsibility on your shoulders. Again, bringing this all together, you need to hit the reset button on what you've learned up until this point, and you need to go back to the basics of why are people going online today. Oftentimes, it's not to be sold to. More often, it's to be engaged. They're taking to social media because they want to consume content that they deem as valuable, content that adds inspiration to them, content that's educational. It's why we go on our email, right? Because we're perceiving that there's something of value within that inbox. So again, hit the reset button of where you're at today and have a very open mind that the golden era of marketing, it's long gone. It's over. It's going to continue to get noisy. It's going to continue to be more saturated. In fact, AI is already contributing to more of that noise, but AI will continue to contribute to AI influencers. Brands are completely automated. You've got faceless channels. These are all trends that continue to evolve at a very fast pace. And it's making the connection between a brand and their consumer more fragmented and disjointed. Back in the day, the early days of digital marketing, the early days of social media, it was easier from the standpoint of you were competing against one or two other brands in your segment or category. So, for example, my first corporate job in social in 2012 was for a supermarket chain by the name of Winn-Dixie. My competition back then in running social media for a multi-state, multi-location grocery chain was to compete against the other grocery chains in my category, in my locations, right? So it's limited to just a handful of competitors. Nowadays, in this case, in grocery, not only would I be competing against direct competitors, but I'd be also competing against bloggers, vloggers, influencers, anyone that's talking about food, right? And the same thing holds true for whatever category or industry that you're in. So I want you to think about this because so many times marketers make this critical mistake that you are in a direct head to head competition with the brands that you perceive that are taking market share away from you. When in reality, not only are you competing against those brands, but you're competing against people that are brands too. You're competing for attention, a very limited amount of attention, I might want to add. You're competing for attention against anyone that's talking about your category. So I work for GetResponse. GetResponse is an email marketing service provider. Anyone on social media that's talking about email, in this case, becomes a competitor, or they become a collaborator if I and my team focus on building fruitful relationships. That's the difference of this era that we're in. And to understand this, you need to recognize that social networks themselves give you access, and social networks give you reach. Okay. Like a very high level. If I had to define to anyone, what's the value of social media to a brand today? It's not necessarily that you can post for free, because as you're going to hear me say in a moment, these social networks themselves aren't necessarily free. These social networks are very much advertising platforms, but these social networks give you reach and access to people. And that's key. But we need to keep in mind is that these social networks themselves are not all created equally. So if you look here on the screen, right, you have like your Instagram, you have your Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, now known as X, LinkedIn, Snapchat. All of these social networks give you reach to different types of people, different demographics, how the content's consumed on these platforms. It's all different, right? So the content that you post on Reddit, for example, is not going to be the same type of content that you post on Snapchat. The content that you post on LinkedIn is probably going to be very different from what you're taking to Facebook even and posting. So I say this because so many times businesses of all sizes make this critical mistake that they just post and pray on every social network. And what I mean by that is they post the same type of content on every social network. And then oftentimes they don't get the ROI or the results that they're aiming for. And they see very little, if any, engagement because they're not using these social networks to form meaningful dialogue or meaningful connections within these channels. Also, they're not posting content that's relevant to the channel itself. So just to kind of break this down for you, Instagram is very much like a photo album, right? It's where you go, you share micro content, whether it's a video, you share an engaging photo, you have a caption that typically will have an inspirational or motivational or educational message of some sort. Whereas you look at a platform like, say, YouTube, that's designed, historically speaking, for more longer form video content. So it's important that you keep in mind that you don't need to be on every social network at all, but you need to be on the social networks where your audience is and where you have reach and where you're able to produce high quality content. Because at the end of the day, people don't want to be sold to, they want to be engaged. And the world doesn't need more content, it needs valuable connections. Which brings me to this next point here. And it's very important for me to make you aware, in case no one has told you this before, that these social networks are not your friends. They're not designed to keep you in business. These social networks, in fact, operate very much like advertising platforms, and they are in business to sell ad space. They want your data, they want your ad budget. It's a very simple transaction. And I use this terminology a lot, right? If you're familiar with gambling terminology about knowing the house rules and the house always wins, in order to make money on these social networks, you have to spend money, meaning you have to run ads, you have to boost your content. Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, the owners of these social networks, they're not in business to make you rich. They're not in business to help you grow your business. In fact, the little dirty secret that doesn't get talked about enough is you don't own any content on social media. You don't own a single follower. Once you log in and you post content of any kind, that content's owned by the social network. All this time, energy, money, focus that you're putting into these social networks, that's all to benefit them so they can sell more ads. And you're going to hear me talk about email marketing throughout this presentation. So I don't want to spoil this for you, but this is why email marketing for 2025 audience matters. This is why email marketing today should be the highest priority of any business, any marketer, any creator, any personal brand. Because these social networks, at the flip of a switch, they could change their algorithms, they could change the way content is distributed. And guess what? If you're putting all of your eggs in the social media basket, you're leaving your brand vulnerable to possibly losing it all. I've personally seen it throughout my career with Vine. I know former creators that were on Vine that were making a living with Vine. Once Vine got acquired and went away, then they lost all their following. I personally know creators on YouTube that have woken up one morning and they've lost their YouTube channels that were generating for them thousands of dollars of revenue and income per month. This is the reality of these social networks. So I say this not only because of my affiliation with GetResponse, but because as a marketing thought leader, I have to share with you the hard facts, the no BS, real talk that these social networks are not in business to keep you in business. In fact, the more content you post on these social networks, the more you're helping them sell more ads. Now, you need to immediately start changing up your KPIs in terms of how you are viewing your success on social media every time you post. So, establishing that the algorithms themselves are favoring pay to play content and not organic content. And I just want to establish this real quick, guys. These algorithms are smarter than you and I. You think that you can outsmart them because you're going to post a caption that doesn't have a call to action, or you're going to lead in with an open ended question to get people engaged. But look, these systems in place understand the game. They are the house. They might allow you to get a viral post here and there, but the reality is that not every post of yours is going to go viral, which is why you need to very quickly switch up your KPIs and how you're ranking your content from visibility to engagement. Historically, most marketers will look at the success of a post based on how many views they got, how visible it was. I'll give you an example. A post goes viral on TikTok and it gets a million views, but gets 48 comments. Well, guess what? Those views that you got really didn't do much for you. It's the comments, it's the direct engagement that you can have with another human being that really matters. You might have gotten a million views, but if you had 48 people comment, that's a really bad conversion ratio of views to engagement. So that I say this because we will post content. I'm guilty of this. I'm sure you're guilty of this in your brand or your business. We will post content all day and we will just post this content and it'll disappear in this lost digital sea of noise. And that's the social network themselves. And I like to make this comparison to Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway. Castaway is one of my favorite movies of all time because throughout the movie Castaway, what's Tom Hanks doing? He's on a stranded island talking to himself and he's talking to a volleyball. So I call this the Wilson effect. And the Wilson effect is essentially mirrors today's state of business and reliance on unpredictable social media for customer engagement, meaning you're posting on social, you're hoping for the best result, you're optimizing your content. Today, in almost 2025, you're probably using ChatGPT to help you write your content to sound a little bit more engaging, a little bit more relatable, have a little bit more personality. But the reality is that you just wasted the last decade of being on social and you haven't really built a community. Then it doesn't matter if you try to game the algorithm and you try to game the algorithm and social network by having an engaging post. The reality is people aren't paying attention to you. You now need to go back to the basics, meaning you need to have a concerted effort in focusing on outbound engagement versus just inbound, meaning relying on people to engage with you. Instead, you're being much more intentional. You're running searches, you're going out, you're finding people to have conversations with. So again, in my world of kind of B2B email marketing, I can use X, I can use LinkedIn, I can use even Facebook groups to find no shortage of people talking about email marketing. And I can have conversations with people directly without ever posting a piece of content. If I were to take your business, so I'm curious to know, like, just drop this in the comment what you sell or what type of business you have, because we're gonna do this real quick. Regardless of what business you have, there are people right now talking about your industry, your business. Maybe not directly the brand that you represent, but there are people online right now. So I'm seeing accounting firm. Great. Right now, there are people that you can easily identify on LinkedIn, probably in small business groups on Facebook, probably even on X. If you were to run a very quick search on X for accounting help or CPA help or different keywords, different search phrases, there are people right now that you can have very real conversations with. And that's considered outbound engagement versus inbound. Historically, everyone's focusing on the inbound, meaning I post content, it goes out into the digital sea of noise. And then based on certain keywords, based on certain hashtags, based on the way that I frame my content, all these people are going to come to me. That's bad marketing. I just want to call it for what it is. It's horrible marketing. That is relying on the social network to do the work for you. And instead, you have to do the work yourself, right? The network itself exists because there's people. That's the social side. The word that often gets ignored in social media marketing or social networking is actual work. So let's see here. Scam awareness and fraud education for ordinary people. Based on whatever sort of fraud or scam that you're trying to educate people on, you can use social media to run different searches. If you're a real estate agent, like I see here, you can run searches for people in your area that are looking for real estate. So my whole point in saying this is that you need to use these social networks to your advantage to listen. And then based on what people are saying, then you use the social network to react and engage. Which brings me to this point here. So I'm curious to know who out there has been using TikTok for the last few years to grow their business. And I want to lead in with TikTok and pick on TikTok for a moment because TikTok, the US government last year, I want to say actually earlier this year, voted for TikTok to be banned come January 2025. That's TBD if that's even going to happen. But this should be an eye opener to anybody and everyone out there listening. If you are resting your laurels on these social networks being around forever, these social networks being free, you're setting yourself up to be the next blockbuster of your industry. And I use Blockbuster Video as an example because growing up as a kid in the 90s, Blockbuster was one of the most iconic brands in the United States. It was in every major shopping center. It was a big part of culture in the United States throughout the 90s. And then what happened? As soon as DVDs came out, as soon as streaming services came out, Netflix put Blockbuster out of business. And what happened essentially was Blockbuster failed to pivot. So I say this because if you're sitting here today in almost the year 2025 and you're not thinking about email marketing, you're only relying on these social networks, then you are setting yourself up for critical failure. Now, normally, if we were doing this workshop in person, I would have you do this audit. Instead, we're about 40 minutes. So I don't want to take too much time, but I would encourage you to take a screenshot or take a photo of this slide right here and run a self audit for every channel where you have a presence on social media. And in fact, for every marketing channel, you should audit yourself. So this goes for email as well. So let's just kind of start with this. When you're doing an audit on your brand, you're going to ask yourself a very honest question. And this is just for you. This isn't for anyone else. Or maybe if you have a marketing team or an agency that you work with, you can do this with them. First question you're going to ask is why are you on Facebook or why are you on Instagram or why are you using email marketing? It's important for you to reestablish the value that these mediums bring to your business. It can be as basic as email marketing helps us stay connected with our customers in between visits, or email marketing is a channel that we are able to send receipts or reminder emails to, or Facebook is where we're able to share updates. So, whatever the reason is, you're going to establish that. Then, what are your 2 to 3 key objectives? So, what are you hoping that these channels do for you? Again, being on these channels, using these marketing mediums themselves will not make you a dime. Using these mediums in these channels correctly can be very lucrative for you, even if it's one or two. It's funny because throughout the years, I have flipped this around on marketers and I've let them know transparently. You do realize that if you have a CRM and you have data in that CRM, or if you're using email marketing systems, and you have email addresses, you actually don't need to ever post on social media. And they look at me kind of sideways, like, well, you're the social media guy. How's that even possible? And the reality is that if you have data, then your objective should be to leverage that data to just run ads and get your content in front of the audience that is already engaging with your brand. You've already done the hard work. You've already gotten someone's data, you've gotten their email address. Leverage that to your advantage to target those audiences across the channels where they have a presence. Because it's a lot easier for me to run an ad and get that content in front of you. And we already have a relationship, a business relationship. Now encourage you to share that content and now turn you into an advocate and turn you into my marketing army versus posting organically to people that aren't familiar with my brand or business, or we maybe don't have a business relationship, and hope that my content is good enough that they feel compelled to share it. So again, this is just one of the strategies where I try to get folks to think about how you can really, tie in or marry your email marketing or your CRM data to social without having to invest so much time, money, and effort in creating social media content. So again, first step, why are you using this marketing channel? What are your two to three key objectives? Who are your top three competitors? It's important that you pay attention to what your competition is doing online because A, you can get inspiration from your competition, and you can use that inspiration to your advantage, or B, you can see if they're not on these channels at all. It's always important to take a look at. And I always just recommend you like your top three competitors. So if you work in, for example, real estate, well, in your market, who are the three real estate agents that you're constantly seeing advertising at restaurants, on bus stops, at the mall? Who are they and what are they doing right? You want to identify what someone is doing right. So then maybe you can start modeling your content in your own voice and tone. So again, make sure that you're auditing yourself. Now, this brings me to a very, very critical point. Today, people are brands, people buy from people, and people want to be engaged, not sold to. And what I mean by this is that some of the biggest brands in the world are not your Coca Cola and your Pepsi or your Starbucks or your Nikes anymore. In fact, some of the biggest brands in the world are everyday people known as celebrities, known as influencers. Mr. Beast, for example, is pretty much his own media network. Kim Kardashian, Jake Logan Paul, like these individuals are not just people, they're brands as well. Now, the reality is that everyone, myself, yourself included, we all are brands in our own right as well, within our industries, within our companies, with our city, our community, our town. We all have reach, we all have influence. But I want to put this out there because I want you to start thinking about the fact that today people are being influenced by these influencers, no pun intended, to buy, to engage. When you think about your own activity, if I had to ask you this question in person, do you go on social media to consume content from brands? I guarantee you the majority of people watching this would say no. Because I know I ask this question in every single keynote in person, and very rarely does a single hand go up. And mind you, I spend the majority of my time on stages speaking to marketers. So if marketers aren't consuming content from brands, I can guarantee you your everyday consumer has already been trained over the last decade to tune out brands. And that's not just on social, that's on email as well. And the reason for that is because the majority of the time, when someone's consuming content from a brand, whether it's in the medium of email, whether it's on social, it is an ad. It's a pitch for a product. It provides no value. It provides no education, no inspiration, no motivation whatsoever. It's just an ad, and people are tired of being sold to. Instead, people are taking to social to consume content from their favorite celebrity, their favorite influencer, their favorite movie star, maybe musician. And what they don't realize is those people are influencing them indirectly through their own brands, through what they're drinking, where they're traveling to, where they're hanging out, the people that they're with. And it brings me to this point when we talk about content and content marketing. We are living right now through what I like to refer to as a Tinder generation where people are reacting to what looks good and sounds good. So if your content is optimized to sell, then there's a high likelihood that when your content pops up in someone's feed, it's going to be ignored. Whereas if your content's optimized to engage, people are going to take a moment and they're going to stop and they're going to read. And if the content's compelling enough, they're going to engage in the form of clicking a like or a share or commenting. And I'll share with you an example. I was with a colleague that I work with yesterday, and he's asking me the question, why is it, Carlos, that when you post on LinkedIn, whenever you post a real story about yourself or your family, you get hundreds of comments, you get hundreds of likes. But then when you post about our company, you don't get the same reaction. And I said, well, it's very simple because, like I'm sharing with all of you, people don't want to be sold to, they want to be engaged. So if I share a story that's very real and relatable, that story isn't just real to me, it's relatable to others. That's what makes us human. And that's something that AI can't necessarily replicate. AI can help me sound smarter or sound more engaging, but my actual backstory, that's unique to me. Your backstory is unique to you. Like if you're a small business owner, You should absolutely be documenting the grind of running a small business. If you work in marketing for a corporation, you should absolutely be putting the spotlight on what makes that corporation operate. What's the ethos, the heart of that corporation? We need to get back to telling more stories that are real and relatable than simply talking about products, goods, and services. Because again, we're in this Tinder generation where people are smart. You can't fool the internet anymore. We're no longer in the early days of the internet. I can tell you, Gen Z definitely doesn't want to be sold to. In fact, if you look at a lot of the content on a TikTok today, it's anti-sales, it's anti-marketing. But yet, what people don't realize is you're being sold to and you're being marketed to through the content. It's just not packaged up as a brand. It's being delivered to you by a person. Now, the good news is we all have access to the same tools, resources in 24 hours a day as every rich and famous person that we follow on social media. So you have access to the same tools at the same time as Beyonce. You have access to the same time and the same tools as Elon Musk. Now, some of these influencers and celebrities, they might have more money and access to resources, but the tools are the tools. The time is the time, right? So it's up to you to leverage these tools to ensure that whenever you're posting, you aren't selling. Instead, you're engaging more. You're using the tools to listen. You're using these tools to form meaningful dialogue and meaningful relationships. And this is where email comes into play. So I've just shared with you for about the first half of our time here together about the realities of social. I'm not saying social media is bad. Look, I have built a very successful, lucrative career using social media. And I think social media is a tool that's going to continue to drive immense ROI and value to brands, marketers, small businesses, creators, you name it. So you cannot ignore the power and reach that social media gives you. But email marketing is the marketing unicorn when you look at the whole digital marketing ecosystem. First of all, you see the stat here on the screen. Email reaches over 4 billion users worldwide. That's much more reach than Facebook is providing you. When you think about this, email is it's a critical part of our digital DNA. So you need an email address in order for you to sign up for just about anything. You want to go on Amazon, you need an email address. You want to go on social media, you need an email address. It's a big part of our digital DNA. So I look at an email address as a critical piece of digital real estate. And what I'm going to show you over the next few slides are strategies on how you can use social in combination with email. So again, you can't ignore social, but you need to be using email marketing for the reasons I stated before. Example, it's harder to stand out on social today because of algorithms. It's hard to stand out on social today because social media is just noisy. It's hard to stand out on social today because the majority of the times, I would say 99.9% of the content on social is just bad content from brands, at least, not from people. So, with that being said, let's talk about the marriage of email and social and how you can revive essentially your organic reach. Now, it's a lot of money that's being made in email marketing. And an example I want to share with you comes from Morning Brew. So, Morning Brew is a daily email newsletter. Well before I joined the GetResponse team, I subscribed to Morning Brew and I love the content. It's a daily email, easily digestible. And as a marketer, provides me with some valuable nuggets. It's a way for me to stay in tune with what's happening in the business and marketing world. Now, Morning Brew, which started by two co-founders while they were in college, sold in 2020 for $75 million by Business Insider. And they did this with only 4 million subscribers. And I say only as a very small number because it is a small number by comparison to the fact that you have over 5.3 billion internet users worldwide. So when you think about the industry that you're in, whether it's real estate, whether it's insurance, automotive, even marketing, whatever industry that you're in, I would recommend that you start thinking about creating an email newsletter for the industry itself. And you can do this as a brand, you can do this as a creator as well. I would also highly recommend that you start thinking about creating a daily newsletter related to your business. And you might think, well, I don't want to bombard or spam my email list every single day. But an email doesn't need to be a sales offer. An email doesn't need to be long and invasive. An email can literally be a tip. An email can be something unrelated even to your brand or business. But think about using email no different than how you're using social media right now. Most of us are using social media every single day because we want to stay top of mind, we want to stay relevant. So why wouldn't we use email to stay top of mind and stay relevant when you're able to cut through the noise using email, which you can't do with social? So Morning Brew is definitely a success story that I would recommend that you try to replicate if you can. And then it's using GetResponse tools, specifically to build and manage premium content that adds value through subscriptions. Now, I want to point this out there once again. If you're not using GetResponse today, I highly recommend that you scan the QR code that you see in front of you right now and you sign up for a free trial of GetResponse. I've worked in digital marketing since 2008, primarily on the social media marketing side. And I had to be completely honest with those of you watching this. I didn't realize until I joined GetResponse how much opportunity I, as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, have left on the table for myself because I wasn't using email marketing. I've also left money on the table at corporations I've worked at because I wasn't using email marketing the right way. I'll give you an example. Okay. GetResponse itself goes well beyond email marketing. The aspect of email marketing that I personally have slept on and am humble enough to admit is the marketing automation side. Marketing automation itself is where the money is at because marketing automation allows your brand to essentially be always on, or you can program emails to be triggered based on certain circumstances. So I'll give you an example. If you send out an email campaign right now, let's just assume that you get a 40% open rate, which is really good if you get 40% open rate. So you got 40% open rate, you're excited because you got 40% of your email subscribers to open up your email. And then within that 40%, then more than likely your conversion rate of clicks goes down. Let's say maybe you have closer to like a 10% click through rate. And then within those clicks, you got an even smaller percent of conversions. So oftentimes we think about like these big numbers, right? And we get really excited. Just to kind of put it into perspective, you email 10,000 people, 40% open up. So that's 4,000 people. Out of that 4,000 people, 10% of them click and go through your website. Now that's 400. Out of those 400 people, maybe you get 1% to actually buy, right? So now that's a much smaller number than that 40% number that initially got you excited. Email automation or marketing automation, I should say, is the secret sauce. It's the ninja gray pack. First of all, if you're not engaging the 60% that aren't opening up your email, you're leaving money on the table. Second, if you're not engaging the people so that out of the 40% that open, the 90% that didn't click, you're leaving money on the table. If at each step of the way of your email campaigns, you are not engaging the people that are not completing what you want them to do, you're leaving money on the table and you're being highly ineffective with your email marketing. Email marketing is not just about getting a campaign put together and getting in someone's inbox. In fact, I guarantee you that if I were to ask every single person watching this right now, do you look forward to opening up your Outlook, your Gmail, your Yahoo, your email, platform that you use? You're probably gonna say no. I remember back in the day in the 90s when I would use America Online or AOL and I would receive an email, I'd get that you got mail. It was like Christmas every single time. I look forward to it. Right now, if I showed you my iPhone, like I'm maxed out. It says I have like 99,000 unopened emails, which is insane. But it's the reality. I get emails every single day that I didn't ask for. I get added to lists that I don't want to get the communications from the brands. Even if I opt out, there's more that keep coming through. Okay. And this is because we're putting our data on these social networks. We're putting our data on different websites. And then those websites, those social networks are taking that data and they're reselling it to other advertisers, right? It's all in the fine print, all in the terms and conditions. So with that being said, it's important that you are pressing every button that you possibly can to ensure that you have triggers in place to keep your audiences engaged. So this right here is the guide that I really want you to screenshot and I want you to follow. Because again, like many folks out there, I made the mistake of assuming that GetResponse was limited to just email marketing. And instead, GetResponse is the entire marketing toolkit, an entire suite of marketing automation tools, and also now creator monetization tools I'm going to get to here in just a moment. As we move forward here, I want you to start thinking about social media as a funnel for you to, first of all, use to be found and discovered. So you should be using social networks to post content in a way that's educational, inspirational, motivational for your brand to be able to be found, but also for you to be able to be found as well. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to use social as just a place where you're selling. Instead, you want to use social in opposite. You want to use social as a place to build awareness, and then you want to use email to sell, not use social to sell and then hope that people get over to your email newsletter, opt in, will then drive them right back to social. So many times I see brands making this mistake where they're using social media to give away the farm, they're producing content, they're talking about sales, offers, coupons, discount codes, you name it. And then the same content they're posting on email, and they're not giving their audience a reason for them to follow and also be opted in. So the objective here is produce content that your followers engage with so then you can transform your followers over into email subscribers. Once you have that valuable piece of digital real estate being the email address, now you're able to cut through the digital noise that is social media. And by the way, if y'all have any questions up to this point, please drop them in the chat. So I use this term quite a bit, freemium to premium strategy, because most often I will see brands that they will hold back with email, right? So they use social as a way just to post this kind of fun content, entertaining content. But then the emails are really serious. The emails is all about business. It's important that you align your tonality on both mediums. So if you're fun and engaging on social, be fun and engaging on email. Use these mediums to post and provide content that provides education. Every brand out there is able to educate their audience on what they do, how to use their products. Every brand out there is able to inspire. So inspire your audiences to take action, right? Share inspiring stories of how your customers actually use your products or your goods or your tools or your services. Entertaining content. Entertainment is hard for a lot of brands. Most brands by design are very boring. Most marketers that work for the brands themselves are very boring as well. However, what's cool about social is you have the ability to use GIFs. You can integrate music. You can integrate filters. Like there's ways that you can make your content fun. My whole point in saying this is you need to have a strategy in which your email and your social channels are speaking to one another. And then start thinking of your email newsletter as the VIP section for your brand. So very similar to the example of Morning Brew, use your email campaigns as a way for you to provide exclusivity. Meaning there's content, there's offers, there's something for your customers that they're only going to get through your email newsletter. My recommendation to you is to give an incentive at opt-in, meaning you advertise on social that by joining your email newsletter, you're going to give someone a 15, 20, 25% off coupon or free shipping. There's something of value that the person is going to get. And then once that person opts in through marketing automation workflows, you're able to communicate how often you email, what to expect, where that person can follow you on all the socials. So think of your email going forward, very similar to Morning Brew, as the VIP section for your brand. Now, that brings me to my next point, which is monetizing your content. So let's talk about this for a moment. If you are a content creator or a business coach, these social networks we've already established are not in business to make you money, even though, yes, they do have ad sharing programs that give you a few breadcrumbs. Those breadcrumbs, by comparison, are pennies and fractions of dollars by comparison to what you can make on your own selling your own content, monetizing your following through content itself. GetResponse recently rolled out a whole suite of content monetization tools. It's called our content monetization platform. And through these tools, you can create courses similar to mine. So if you click on the link here within the webinar, you can go sign up for my course for free. You can see the platform, the backend. It's a beautiful, beautiful system. We also have built-in AI tools, so you can realistically create a course within hours and have a monetizable SKU that you can then sell to your audience on social, which you absolutely should be doing. You see here some of the faces on the screen. These are influencers and creators that have created courses on the GetResponse platform. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with our creator tools. Once again, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial. So you can actually go in, you can use the tools themselves. And look, creating a course doesn't need to be difficult. I provide the framework right here for you. So if you've ever thought about creating a course, if you've ever thought about monetizing your expertise, the first thing that you need to do is a skills assessment. You do a skills assessment and assess what are you good at and what can you teach that you can monetize soup to nuts. So for example, I'm a social media marketing thought leader or expert, you can say. I am well versed in teaching social media marketing A to Z. What are you good at? So I have some different examples here. If you're a real estate agent, teach how to buy real estate within a 45 to 60-minute course. If you are in automotive sales, teach how someone can save money on their next car purchase, how you can use social media in your business, how to find your next job. Like, these are all different ideas. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a skills assessment. Then you're going to go over to ChatGPT and you're going to ask ChatGPT for ideas on topics for you to create content. ChatGPT is going to give you some different ideas. I would suggest that you create content, video content that you can now share on TikTok. You can share on Instagram. You can create written form content, share it on Medium, or you can share it within the blog, within your content monetization profile on GetResponse. These are all tactics that are going to help you build thought leadership, but also help establish you as a go-to expert. So once again, go to getresponse.com, sign up for our creator free trial, use the tools to create your first course. And now that you have a course, as you create content on social, position yourself as a thought leader, as an expert, you have a real SKU or you have an online product that you can drive those followers to so they can learn more from you. And more importantly, you can monetize that following. As we wrap up, I want to talk about future proofing your brand. And the next slide is going to go into different tactics that you can implement and should immediately start implementing. And once again, I want to invite you, if you have any questions, to drop those questions here in the chat. So, tip number one, ensure that you are not left out in the cold by not having a email marketing strategy. As we've already established, you cannot rely on social networks themselves. You need to be using email in order to have direct access to your followers or to your customers. So that's step number one. Step number two is continuously refine your email list for effective communication. And you do this through automation workflows. So analyze who hasn't opened up a campaign in the last year, who hasn't bought for my brand, who are the people that open up but they don't click, and then start creating content specifically for them. Leveraging data integration is important as well. So taking your CRM data or your email data and importing that into social will allow you to now create targeted ad campaigns to ensure that your content on social is being seen by your customers or your prospects that you already have their data on. Creating consistent cross-channel content is key as well. So if you're posting content on social every day, maybe think about doing a daily newsletter or mirror your content. So you're posting educational content on social, post educational content via email. Make sure that your channels are speaking to one another. So email and social should always have a strategy that mirrors one another. Implement automation AI tools. It goes without saying, AI is not going away. In fact, AI is going to continue to be a key, play a key role in how we do marketing, how we do business. So right now, ChatGPT, it's just scratching the surface. Even our built-in AI tools, like you should be using, if you're using GetResponse, use our built-in AI tools to help you write more effective copy for your email. Like, I love this feature within the GetResponse tool, just FYI. Last night, as I was developing a campaign promoting this webinar, yeah, I went in, I wrote copy, and then I was able to use our AI feature to ask our built-in AI tool to add more personality or to finesse it or to proofread. And the AI was able to take my writing and just take it up another notch. So again, these are all growth hacks that you should be using. If you're not using them, again, you're leaving money on the table for not using technology that's in place to make life easier and more efficient. Then there's cross-channel subscriptions. So what a cross-channel subscription means is use social to drive people back to your newsletter because there's a hook or there's an offer that you're giving them via email. Or use email to drive more sales because there's a hook that you're able within that first um, email automation, that welcome email that your new subscribers get. There's an offer that's good for 24 hours, or there's a flash sale. You know, think about again this marriage of social and email working to where social helps you build top of the funnel awareness for your brand. Email then becomes the hook to get offers and drive people back to your website or your physical business so they can buy. It goes without saying, monitoring and adapting to platform changes is critical. So, TikTok, keep an eye over the next month of what happens. Keep an eye on these social networks as they make changes to their platforms. It seems like every single week, Instagram's making a change. They're rolling out a new feature. X is rolling out new features. Facebook, LinkedIn, like they're constantly evolving and changing. I can tell you for a fact, I've been doing this work in digital marketing for now going on close to 2 decades. These social networks are continuing to evolve, and the key is to evolve with them. The key is also to take into account that these social networks are all about building community. If you're not building community, then you're leaving precious dollars on the table. So, with that, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's presentation. If it brought you any value whatsoever, I would love to hear from you. Make sure that we connect at Carlos Gil 83 on X as well as on Instagram. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I want to once again encourage you to sign up for my free No BS Marketing Strategies course. You can access the course by clicking on the link at the very top of this webinar. So with that one, to once again, thank you for your time today. If you're not using GetResponse, let's go ahead and change that. Sign up for that 30-day free trial. And with that being said, let's open it up to any questions that you have. All right. So, question here from Lydia: how soon will the recording be available? The recording should be available, I would anticipate, within the next few days. So, stay tuned to our YouTube channel. That's normally where these webinars go to live beyond this limited live period. Our course is a good way of engaging for larger companies, not content creators. I would say yes. I would say if you think about creating a free course, that free course almost becomes like a tutorial. Think of like YouTube style tutorials. And the brand that comes to mind right now is Home Depot. So Home Depot, if you go on their YouTube channel, they have a lot of like DIY, do it yourself, how to do this, how to build something. I think a course, what's cool about it from a corporate standpoint is A, you're able to capture the data that you can't capture on the YouTube. B, you can package your course up in a way where it gives free value, right? So you can use it get response. You can create content that's teaching. You now are able to control, right, the end result where you can't control it on social. And now you again have a SKU or you have a product that you can put in front of your audience. Whereas YouTube, I feel like you're just giving away the content doesn't really have value when you're giving it away in that sense. Even if you're creating a free course, you're still gatekeeping, meaning you're asking for an email address, a phone number, first, last name, you're collecting data. So I'm curious to know from your standpoint, what type of business are you in? What sort of brand do you represent? Courses added value to the product? Yes, 100%. Curious for those of you that are watching, was this a helpful presentation? Did you enjoy it? Did you get value out of it? All right, I'm seeing a yes. That's great. Curious to know where y'all are watching from as well. We produce materials for 3D printing. So that's interesting because that's a super niche industry. I'm sure that there's some really cool content that you are probably producing already and sharing on TikTok or Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. So think I would have to learn a little bit more about how you're trying to use a course. If the course itself is to teach people how to do 3D printing, and that's going to help generate more leads for you to be able to sell products, then absolutely it makes sense. How can we maximize deliverability of a new email address? I would say this starts with the welcome email that you send. So going back to establishing workflow automations, I recommend that you have a email that is triggered upon opt-in. So if someone signs up for your newsletter, let's just take the example at a brick and mortar retail store, they sign up because they receive a receipt via email. They should get an email sent to them as a follow-up, maybe within a day, l- welcoming them to your community, thanking them for their business, and then also letting that person know what they can expect going forward. So many times I will get opted in to a newsletter by a brand and I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea what relevancy there is to me going forward, whether I should opt out, whether I should stay opted in, how often I'm going to receive email communication. So I think again, we overlook email from the standpoint of social is very much real time, and we think of email as a one-time transaction. You send out an email and then you sit back, you wait for the results, and then you go back at it. And I think we need to start thinking of email in the same light as we do social, in terms of real time triggers based on actions that people take, or in this case, don't take. So if someone doesn't open, they don't click, they don't buy, then there's a trigger that sends an email to them. I think that's how you're going to get maximum deliverability for new accounts. What other questions do y'all have? Let's get those in the chat. If y'all don't have any other questions, you can feel free to drop off. I'm going to hang out here for another minute or two to see if any questions come through. Thank you so much, Doug. I appreciate you. Let's make sure we connect on LinkedIn. How often should I send a newsletter? Once a week or more often? It depends on the brand. I think it depends on the content that you can share. What feels safe to me is, I would say, weekly. I think most businesses should be able to commit to a once a week newsletter. I think if you go once a month, that's just, too long. You're creating too much space in between sends. I would say being consistent if you're going to do a weekly newsletter is key. So if you're going to do a newsletter once a week, pick Wednesday at noon, or pick Monday, or pick Friday. Like, it should be at the same time, same day every week to form consistency. Now, we do have a feature within GetResponse, so you can send your email at the perfect time. But I would recommend still, in order to establish consistency, you have to start training your audience to receive that email. So they look forward to, on Friday at noon, they're going to get that email newsletter. I'm afraid that sending more often than once a week will make clients tired and unsubscribe. I agree. That's why I said once a week feels safe. Morning brew is unique because with the morning brew, and there's other newsletter, like there's like sources of sources, previously known as Haro, which is 3 times a day, right? There's certain newsletters that provide enough value and fresh content that they can do a once a day or multiple times a day newsletter. But if you're trying to be more conservative, you don't want to bombard, you don't want to, come across as spammy, then yes, I'm with you. Once a week is great. Great question. Is a newsletter more important or social media? So I would say it's actually a solid question. If I had to pick one, I'd say newsletter. But to build up the newsletter, you need to use social media. So they go hand in hand. I would say for long-term ROI, newsletter is the most important, but you need to use social media again to build that top of the funnel awareness, build that community. It's going to be difficult to build a community for your newsletter if you're not using social. So I think again, to drive ROI, to drive sales, definitely newsletter if I had to pick one versus the other, but you need to be using both. You cannot do one or the other. You need to be doing both. So I think that's a great way to end today. I see someone is typing, so I'll hang tight until that next question or comment comes through. But yeah, you put me on the spot there. I definitely think you need to be using both. Don't ignore social in order to do a newsletter, and definitely don't ignore a newsletter because you have a good following or strong following on social. So as a producer, it is more important to keep a consistent newsletter. Absolutely, 100%. All right, y'all. I'm going to sign off. I appreciate your time. Make sure we stay connected on LinkedIn. Make sure you sign up for GetResponse. And until next time, peace.